All right, all right, all right, all right, all right, all right, all right. What's up, everybody? All my people in Manhattan, the Boogie Down Bronx, Queens, all out of Staten Island, my home borough, Brooklyn. Back out with another video, and today marks the 35th anniversary of the release of one of my favorite films of all time, and one of the most underrated cult classic films of all time, King of New York, directed by Abel Ferrara, starring legendary actor Christopher Walken and Lawrence Fishburne. No, like I said, one of my favorite movies of all time. It's extremely underrated. A lot of people don't give it love it deserves, and it definitely made its impact on the New York hip hop scene. But we'll get to that a little later. I'm not gonna go over the whole movie scene by scene. I'm just gonna go over some of my favorite scenes in this movie. And like I said, it's a very good movie. Highly recommend if you've never seen it. We open up with Christopher Walken's character Frank White in jail as he's about to get released. He's escorted out by these two brothers who are security guards. But he's Frank White, so he's gonna leave in style. He's gonna leave in a fresh suit and a limo. Later on, this Colombian cat, he goes outside to the telephone booth to make a phone call when some assassins come in and stick the door of the phone booth, and they execute him on the spot. Of course, one of the assassins is Giancarlo Esposito and his two allies. And we leave a newspaper by his body. Of course, this article, Frank White released from prison. Of course, it was a message. Frank White's in the limo with his two concubines, a white girl and a black lady, Teresa Randall. For all you don't know, Teresa Randall is she played Martin Lawrence's wife in the Bad Boys movies. And they're driving through New York City, and Frank's saying how rough and run down it's become, and he wants to help his city and help his people, quote unquote. Later scene, we see Steve Buscemi playing the character of Test Tube, trying to test out the cocaine, make sure everything is legit, with Jimmy Jump Colt, played by Lawrence Fishburne. Like I said, Lawrence Fishburne was spectacular in this movie. I consider this his real breakout role. I mean, no disrespect to Boys in the Hood. Boys in the Hood was a great movie, and he was great in that as well. And of course, he did What's Love Got to Do with It, and for all you don't know, he was nominated for an Oscar for that. But this, to me, was his breakout performance. He was spectacular as Jimmy Jump Colt. He's one of my favorite parts of this movie. They're talking to these Colombian motherfuckers led by King Tito Salvador. The test tube lets Jimmy Jump Colt knows everything's good, everything's on the up and up. And he's testing the stuff out to make sure everything's legit. And King Tito Salvador tells him how he's going to take 10%, much to the surprise of Test Tube and Jimmy Jump. And Jimmy Jump asks, how the fuck are you going to do us like that, Tito? But he ends up compromising, quote unquote compromising, and giving Tito, the money. Which, of course, isn't really money, it's a briefcase full of tampons. And Tito asks, what the fuck is this? And Jimmy Jump says, it's for the bullet holes, puta. Pulls out two guns and executes Tito. Test 2 pulls out a gun and kills some of Tito's bodyguards. Another brother kills one of Tito's bodyguards who's guarding the door. You see the bullet holes go to the door. He busts in saying, room service, motherfuckers. Now, that's definitely a line. When I first saw that movie, room service motherfucker was definitely a line that stood out for me. Later on, we see Frank White in the shower, freshening up. One of his concubines got his suit laid out on the bed and puts a gun in his coat. We see him looking out at the city, his city, quote unquote. And you get a lot of shots like this in the movie. Christopher Walken staring out a window at New York City, or looking at the city because he really cares about it. Teresa Randall comes in, gives him a kiss, and puts a gun in his coat pocket, in his pants, and lets him know he has company. It's Jimmy Jump Colt, Giancarlo Esposito, Steve Buscemi, and others. And Frank asks Jimmy Jump, what's in the cup? Root beer. You want some? Some things I don't do. He winks at him and starts doing this little goofy ass dance. And they all start cheering, Frank, 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 and they give him a hug, and you're back. They're happy their boss is back. And Jimmy Jump Colt tells Frank that those Colombian motherfuckers are doing a permanent vacation in hell. Know what I'm saying? And Frank White responds, I feel no remorse. It's a terrible thing. He starts laughing. Another line stuck out for me for this movie. And Giancarlo Esposito shows him the money that he got from the Colombians, that he stole really from the Colombians, and Frank starts laughing. Ha! Ha! I love money. And Frank's going on his way to a party. He invites the guys to come, but they say no way. And Jimmy Jump says, "I'm gonna go downtown, find me a girl, get my knob polished." Most of the quotable lines in this movie come from Jimmy Jump Colt. Like I said, Lawrence Fishburne was spectacular in this. And Frank asks Jump Colt, "How come you never came to see me?" And he responds, "Because I didn't want to see you in a cage, man." Frank says, "Of course." He gives Frank a glove from King Tito Salvador, and Frank puts it on. He says, "Man, I wish it was there. I would have choked that motherfucker." And does this crazy ass laugh. Frank White or Christopher Walken with that creepy ass smile, and fucked up teeth. At this gathering, he tells his associate here that he wants to be the mayor. He wants for mayor of New York. He tells him to go meet up with Artie Clay. He wants to set up a meeting, talk about the future. He resists initially, but he eventually goes to see Artie Clay. Meanwhile, Frank's talking to his attorney, Jennifer. He starts hitting on her. He says, "You know where I want to take you? The subway." And she starts laughing uncomfortably. Meanwhile, this guy meets up with Artie Clay. He tells him that Frank White wants to meet with him, have a business meeting. And Artie Clay responds, "You tell him I don't talk to nigga lovers." And then Artie pulls out his little Artie, if you will, and pisses on this guy's shoes and tell him that's a message from me to Frank. Frank's not worried about that at the moment because Frank's making out with Jennifer on the subway when some YNs come in and try to jux Frank. But Frank flashes the burner, tells him, "How you like that?" Instead of killing them, Frank gives him some money and tells them to come by the Plaza Hotel. "I got work for you. Ask for Frank White." And they eventually do. Another scene, Artie Clay smoking a cigar, playing polka, and Frank pulls up and tells him, "Hey Artie, I got your message." He wants to play a game with Artie and tells Jimmy Jump to deal the cards. And he tells the guys, "From here on, nothing goes down unless I'm involved. No blackjack, no dope deals, no nothing. Nickel bag gets sold in the park. I want in. You guys got found while everybody starved on the street. It's my turn." Artie Clay threatens him saying, "You think you're going to live long enough to spend that money, you fucking hump?" Frank doesn't take too kindly to that. He pulls out the burner and he kills Artie Clay. And he tells everybody in the room, "If you're tired of getting ripped off by guys like that, you know where to find me. You're welcome. You're all welcome." He shoots Artie a few more times and he leaves. This later scene right here, Frank gets taken by the police. One of the cops is Wesley Snipes. Wesley Snipes and a few other dudes, and they show Frank a dead body, and that they're on to Frank, and they're going to be watching them. They're going to try to take down Frank White because they know who he really is. In later scene, Jimmy Jump Colt on his way to a restaurant to get some chicken, to get some food. You see, he walking in all the swagger, all the work. Not to digress, this movie came out in 1990. It was a right when hip hop first started getting mainstream. Of course, hip hop been around at this point for 17 years. Hip hop been around for a while now, but it first started becoming mainstream in this time period. So you definitely see the hip hop influence in this movie, particularly with Jimmy Jump Colt, and on the soundtrack. And it would surprise me if this film had influence on New Jack City, Boys in the Hood, and Juice and Miss Society, those subsequent quote unquote hood movies that came out in the early part of the 90s. But you never see the hip hop influence, particularly with Lawrence Fishburne's character. Anyway, Lawrence Fishburne's telling him his order not to fuck it up. His dark-skinned brother starts yelling at the kids for messing around with the games. Lawrence Fishburne threatens to smack him for yelling at the kids. And he gives them some money, some coins to go play some arcade games, and he gives their grandmother, I'm assuming that's who that is, some money to pay for their food. While that's going on, his boy gets jumped by the police and gets arrested. He's taking his order, thinking everything's going well, and that's when he hits the dark-skinned brother with "fuck you very much." A line I've definitely used multiple times since I've seen this movie. They come in, they arrest Jimmy Jump Colt. Wesley Snipes talking shit to Jimmy Jump. Jimmy Jump's talking shit to Wesley Snipes' character. He says, "I'll knock the black off your ass." No, jumping ahead, Jimmy Jump makes bail, made his $1 million bail. He's taunting the cops. He's taunting Wesley Snipes and the redhead white boy. And the redhead white boy spits on Jimmy Jump. Spits right in his face. Big mistake. Anyway, jumping ahead in the movie, we see all these guys. They're at a pot. They're partying. They're snorting, smoking, kissing, having a good time. Frank and Jennifer are dancing off beat to some Schoolie D. You see, there's a hip hop influence there. And I believe Schoolie D would work with Abel Ferrara in another movie. He'll contribute songs to another film he made, if I remember correctly. Again, jumping ahead in the movie. I'm not going to cover the whole movie scene by scene. I'm just going over some of my favorite scenes. Later on, during this car chase scene, this guy, he's wrestling around with Jimmy Jump, holding on to Jimmy Jump, trying to pull him out the car. Jimmy Jump unmasks him and reveals he's a cop. And Frank drives near a fire hydrant, a very violent scene, and this cop hits the fire hydrant and is presumed dead. And Jimmy Jump and Frank start laughing. Later on, the two cops thought they lost Frank and Jimmy pulls up in a car and hits the car the two cops are in, and the car rolls over. Jimmy escapes under but Wesley Snipes goes after him, and Jimmy Jump gets the jump, pardon the pun, on Wesley Snipes and shoots him and ends up killing him. But that Ronald McDonald motherfucker, unfortunately, he kills Jimmy Jump Colt, and that's the end of Jimmy Jump Colt in this movie. Very unfortunate. Probably my favorite character in this movie. And this is the funeral for Wesley Snipes' character. Of course, he was a cop. I mean, this guy, he's in the car mourning the loss of his friend when the Frank White limo pulls up in a very eerie way. Frank White says, "Hey, you," and blasts the cop and kills him. Very cold-hearted scene. Very cold. Shows how menacing and heartless Frank White was. He was ruthless. Like I said, the movie ends. There were some other good scenes in the movie, but I just went over my favorites. Okay, again, check out the movie if you haven't. Check it out online or however you can. There's a little article here. In pop culture, rapper The Notorious B.I.G. sometimes referred to himself by the monikers Frank White or the King of New York after the main character's film. That's right. On the song Running, Dying to Live, Biggie said, "The nigga Biggie Smalls trying to turn into the black Frank White." And on the song The What, featuring Method Man on his legendary Ready to Die album, Biggie says, Biggie Smalls the illest. His style is play it out like Arnold. I know what you talking about, Willis. The thrill is gone. The black Frank White is here to excite. Throw dick to dykes, That whole King of New York thing. And after Biggie died, a lot of people started calling himself King of New York. Diddy, Jay-Z did. Jay-Z made a song called City's Mine. Nas would throw his hat into it. 50 Cent. All these guys wanted to be known as King of New York. And that probably, led to the fall of New York hip-hop. The New York rappers started beefing over that shit. Hell, I remember when Tekashi 6ix9ine was popular, at his popularity in 2018, he called himself King of New York, and then he took himself out of the running. Cardi B referred to herself as the King of New York, quote unquote, on a song, even though she's a woman, so I'd make her the Queen of New York. But hey, whatever. But like I said, those are just my favorite scenes from this movie. Tell me what you guys in the comment section down below. What are your favorite scenes from the movie? Jimmy Jump Cole is definitely my favorite character. My favorite scene from the movie, is probably that scene where they're in the car, that car chase scene, and Frank violently kills that dude by smashing his head against the fire hydrant. And Jimmy Jump's just laughing crazy, shooting at Wesley Snipes, shooting at the cops, even though Jimmy Jump Cole dies in that scene, which is again very unfortunate. That's probably my favorite scene because of the action. A lot of the great scenes, go downtown, find me a girl, get my knob polished, fuck you very much, knock the black off your ass. A lot of great one-liners in this movie. What was your favorite? Mine's probably, the get my knob polished one. It's a very underrated cult film. Yeah, if you haven't checked it out, you should. It's really great. This movie should definitely get more love than it does, but it is what it is. Don't forget to click the like button, subscribe. I'll be Young Brother Grow on YouTube. I'm going to see you all.